Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. I read 11 books in the month of January. It was a very successful reading month for me, for the most part. I feel like the volume of books I read was perfectly great, happy with it, but I did kind of stop reading at the end of January and into February, so that's why I'm kind of like late to doing this wrap-up. I've just not been in a very like bookish headspace, which is rare for me. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end of the video, but I am in enough of a bookish headspace today to be able to talk to you about the books that I read in January. I had 3 DNFs, 8 books that I finished, and some gems and some duds, as always. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start first with the 3 DNFs, and then we can talk in depth about the books that I did finish. So first up in the DNF category, we have Reputation by Adriana Locke. This is a book that I picked up because I enjoyed another book by Adriana Locke, and Reputation featured 2 of the characters that were mentioned in that book. I was really interested in their romance, but sadly this book just kind of left me bored. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy what I read of this book or that I wouldn't be interested in other books in this series going forward, but it was one of those things where I got like halfway through this book, I had to kind of set it down and read some other things, and then when I went to pick this one up again, I realized I just didn't care so much about the couple. And that's not to say that like it's a bad book or that it's not a romance that I would recommend, but it's one that I just put down, right? I just put down and I probably won't pick up again. Sometimes if I put a book down, I'll just put it on my on pause shelf on Goodreads, but this one is just one that I don't feel strongly enough about to continue. It is a second chance romance, and those kind of tend to be hit or miss for me anyway, so if you're into second chance romance, you want there to be kind of like a childhood friends to lovers thing, and you like a good like singer-songwriter romance, this might work for you. The hero in this book is a country music star, and our heroine is really mad at him and like upset, and if you like that sort of like angst and tension, I think you might enjoy this book. So moving on, we have A Duke in Shining Armor by Loretta Chase. This is one that I picked up because I owned a physical copy of it. I have a lot of Loretta Chase's backlist, and I'm trying to read through a lot of the books that I own this year. Sadly, this one just didn't work for me. I got like 60% into it. It's a historical romance. I don't know if I said that. It wasn't really for me. I could not tell you a single thing about this book if I tried. Frankly, I'm just gonna be getting rid of it, so it went into my fuck it bucket, if you will. Next up, we have The Naked Fisherman. Julie Ann, I think that's the author's name? Okay. I'd heard so many good things about this author. I'd heard so many good things about this book. It's supposed to be an age gap romance. I'm here for it. I was very excited, and everybody on Goodreads seemed to be going gaga for it. This was really not for me. This was really not for me. This is an age gap romance. It's about this girl who has been kind of like estranged from her mother for a while. I want to say maybe her mother was in prison for a bit, and her parents are divorced. She was living with her dad. I think her mom's now out of prison, and she has been living with this man, or living in this man's like rental property that's like attached to his house. She's having her daughter come and live with her now. The romance is between the daughter and the landlord, I guess you could say. There was a lot that didn't work here. I'll just keep it brief. I didn't like the writing of this book. It felt so weird. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like a very immature writing style. I just didn't connect with that at all. I think to do a successful age gap romance and to not make it cringy or like silly, you have to have really solid writing and really solid connection between the 2 characters, and I didn't feel that here. And on top of that, I mentioned this in my Goodreads review, but there is a moment where our heroine, who grew up very, very religious, mentions the fact that she is anti-homosexuality or something like that, homophobic basically, and she mentions that that's just her religion and that's just how she was raised. And I understand what the author was trying to do in making our heroine like naive, but I think there's other ways to make someone naive and maybe sheltered without making them bigoted, because it's clear that we're not supposed to read the character as bigoted, but you put that on her, and I'm not going to not see that anymore. It just felt like an unnecessary addition. I really didn't appreciate that. Even if it's something that's resolved later, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. I found it offensive as a queer person myself, so I didn't finish that book. I had heard bad things about it from a couple of my friends. I really should have listened to my friends and not Goodreads, but sometimes I just like want to buy into the hype, and I shouldn't have. Anyway, moving on to books that I did finish. In the same strange vein, we have Darling Venom, which I finished it, so like hats off to me, I guess, for finishing it. This is a book by Parker S. Huntington. It is an interesting romance. I was gonna say it's a second chance romance, but it's not really that. This story is about our main character, Charlotte, who ends up falling for this guy named Kellen. They have this sort of like pact, if you will. They end up meeting each other on the top of a building. They're both going to end their own lives, and instead of doing that, they decide that they're going to meet up on the same rooftop every, I think, February 14th. They're going to catch up with each other and make sure that the other person is doing okay mentally. They're not going to talk to each other throughout the year, though, just during this one day. And I don't really know where to go from here in describing this romance. I don't know what about this is going to be spoilery or not. I don't want to spoil it if it's something you're interested in, but I don't think this is a spoiler to say that Charlotte Charlotte does not end up with Kellen. She ends up with Kellen's brother, Tate. There were parts of this that I enjoyed, right? I feel like the emotion and the emphasis on certain life themes and life experiences that people have was important. I thought it was well done, and there was a lot to like here, and I definitely would be interested to read more from this author in the future. However, a big however, some of the choices here, and I think Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life really touched on this well, and I'll leave a link to her video reading this book, if I can find it. She makes this point that there was a lot here that was good in terms of the emotion and the relationship building between Tate and Charlotte, but the shock and awe that was trying to be like drawn out of you, it didn't work with the serious themes here. Like, there were very serious themes. The relationship was very like serious and wrought, but the like sex scenes and the weird inclusions really like brought this book down, honestly, from like a 4 or 5 to a 3. We have characters getting sexual in a sort of gynecological sense, which felt weird to me. There's a scene where a heroine walks in on the hero having sex with someone in his office, again, just for like this shock and awe, like grab you kind of factor. And again, Crystal made such a good point in her video that a lot of books nowadays, especially Kindle Unlimited books, are sold to authors as being like the wildest, smuttiest thing ever to get people to pick it up. And while that might be great marketing, it doesn't really translate into books that are well crafted as a whole. It's like authors feel like they have to appeal to people and make things as smutty and outlandish and whatever, shock and awe factor to draw people in. Sometimes that can be kind of incongruous with the themes of the book, and that's how this one felt. It was like, I can tell who you're trying to target with this book, but it doesn't work when the other elements of the book don't go with that. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but this book just did not totally work for me. I think I gave it 3 stars. Like, there were hints of goodness there. I enjoyed my time reading this, and it's one of the only Kindle Unlimited books I've read this year that really, really gripped me. I mean, I say that, like, I've only read a handful of Kindle Unlimited books. Not even a handful. It's only February, but I don't know. I might read more from this author in the future. This was just a weird one. Moving on to another weird one that I actually did enjoy. Kill the Boy Band by Goldie. I want to say it's like Moldavsky. This is a book about a group of 4 girls who are really into this band called the Ruperts, which is supposed to be a One Direction kind of like stand-in or parody. And these girls make it their life's mission to be fangirls, to try to meet the Ruperts. They get their wish in this story, and things kind of go awry from there. I don't want to spoil it, but if you like a truly unhinged story and you want something that has kind of interesting commentary on like the boy band experience and what it means to be a teenage girl, I think you'd really like this book. I listened to it on audio, and it was a fantastic experience. I think honestly a big part of why I enjoyed this book and finished it was because I had the audiobook. I looked up the audiobook narrator after finishing, and I realized she's only done this audiobook, and I was really sad about it. So I think that says something, and I think if you are at all interested in this premise, you need the audiobook. It was just fun. It was so fun. I will say the ending was maybe a little bit lackluster to me, given all of this like lead up and wildness that we have up until this point. But I think if you like Heathers, or I don't know, just kind of like dark satirical stories, I think you would really, really like this book. I had such a good time reading it, and I'm not even a fangirl, but I appreciated parts of what this book said. Yeah, it was just fun. I had a really good time with it. I didn't expect to. It was one of those books that I owned, but I didn't really remember why I had purchased this in the first place, and I really didn't expect to like it, but I mean, I gave it 4 stars, so it was a good time. Glad I read it, and I will be keeping it on my shelves. So overall, a win. A book that was not so much a win. Another book that I own, Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. I'm just upset that my friends, I don't want to say I'm upset that my friends enjoyed this. I'm glad that my friends enjoyed this. I'm upset that my friends thought that I could maybe like this book, because I certainly did not. I gave this book 2 stars. So the premise of this book was pretty good. I liked it. I liked the beginning of the story. It drew me in. I was listening to it on audio, and I was, yeah, let's do this. It's about our main character, who lives in this sort of like planned, like small planned community. She's really close with her neighbors, and this girl who kind of like dog sat, and I think her dad maybe lived in the community. Everybody knows this girl, right? She's accused of murdering a family who she like dog sat for or something like that. And this story is set years later, after that girl went to prison for a little bit. Now she's back in the community, and she's like, I'm gonna get my vengeance, sort of. So she ends up living with our main character. Got our main character, we've got the murder accusee. We're trying to figure out who maybe really killed these people, because we don't think it is the girl who was accused. Like, she thinks she's wrongly accused. And we're also just hearing more about this like community, and hearing about it being potentially nefarious, or like whatever. I feel like this book was trying too hard to tap into the psychology of the characters, and not doing it successfully. It was trying to be a Gillian Flynn book. It was trying to be a Karen Slaughter, and it just didn't go there. It didn't like do what it was supposed to do. And if you are going to write something that is very psychological, it has to succeed. Otherwise the story is boring. And in this case, case the story was just boring. That coupled with the ending, no. It's a no. It's a no. The ending of this book was truly bad. I didn't enjoy it. There was one moment that I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun and interesting. But the ultimate conclusion and the ultimate whodunit was deeply unsatisfying, and it was the boring ending that this boring book deserved. So in a lot of ways, like, thank you for not having a good ending for a shitty book, because that would have made it hard to rate. This book had a shitty story and a shitty ending, so 2 stars felt very deserving. Honestly, maybe 1 star. No, it wasn't that bad. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Anyway, moving on. Another book that I gave 2 stars to, sadly, was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, another book that I owned. That was kind of like the theme for the most part of my reading month, was what books do I own? Let's just see what I can get on audiobook from my library and just get it done. This one was tough for me, right? I expected to enjoy this story because I personally have OCD, and our heroine in the story has OCD and anxiety, and I was excited to read a book that would potentially be validating and, like, you know, representation is important. I do think that this book is an example of one person's experience with OCD and anxiety, but I didn't relate to the experiences of our main character and, like, her experience with her mental health, and I didn't really like the plot of the book. So this book just felt kind of like to me. It's like semi-mystery, like a semi-mystery. Our main character's trying to, like, find one of her old friends' missing dad. Like, there's a reward out for this, like, rich guy. She's gonna, like, figure out where he is. I wanted to like this book, like I said, and I'm keeping it on my shelves because I have a signed copy, and I think it's signed by both John and Hank, so, like, obviously I'm keeping it. All of that to say, it just, like, wasn't for me. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that it validates people who it worked for. It wasn't for me. Moving on. A book that I think is kind of overrated, and a book that I am a little sad that I didn't pick up earlier, but a book that I also only gave 3 stars to. A lot of preamble here. The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This book is about our main character, Carolina. She got dumped by her fiance like a couple of hours before their wedding. He just kind of says, yeah, I'm good, I don't want to get married, and she is, like, blindsided. She finds out that her fiance's brother is the one that kind of convinced him not to marry Carolina. Years later, she has to team up with Max, who is her ex-fiance's brother, the one that, like, convinced him not to marry Carolina. She has to work with Max to get her dream job. And I really enjoyed this story. I didn't give it more than 3 stars, I will say, right now, because it was a little generic. I'll just say that. It was a little bit generic. But I think if you're someone who really liked The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, I think you would like this book. There were similar elements. There's, like, kind of a fake dating situation. There is a lot of tension and angst and kind of, like, I hate you to I love you. Again, the only reason I didn't give this book a higher rating was because I've already read The Hating Game. This doesn't feel like a super fresh story, but of books that have this sort of storyline going on, I would definitely recommend this one. And you know what? I'm gonna say something real bold here. I'd recommend this one over The Hating Game. If someone asked me, like, getting into romance, they want a good enemies to lovers story, they want something kind of juicy with, like, fake dating, I would definitely recommend this one over The Hating Game, which is weird to say because I think I rated The Hating Game 4 stars, but this one's more interesting and it's more diverse, so, like, pick it up. I really recommend it. It wasn't my perfect romance or anything because I like something a little smuttier, but it was good. It was really good. And you know what? The smutty scenes in this were fun. You know what? Fuck it. I'm bumping up my rating to 4 stars. We're bumping it. We're bumping it up. Go read it. Go read it. This is fucking chaotic. My apologies. Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. Okay, this is a historical romance. This is a historical romance that I owned. I think I'm finding out that Sarah MacLean's books are just not for me, sadly. I think I said this in my December wrap-up because I read, I think, The Day of the Duchess, that was, like, you know, highly acclaimed, like, her best book. Didn't like that one. Here's my deal. A lot of historical romance authors are known for, like, a particular thing, and they like to stick to that thing. Kerrigan Byrne loves a good prologue that is dark as fuck. Tessa Dare loves a good quirky heroine. Sarah MacLean likes a book with a lot of plot. And the thing about it is that if you're going to have a plot in a historical romance book, it's gotta be really good to get me to forget about the fact that we're not focusing on the romance. And that just did not happen here. This book was so chock full of plot that I didn't care about. I couldn't enjoy the romance between the 2 characters. And on top of that, I wouldn't have enjoyed the romance anyway because the interactions between our hero and heroine just weren't it. So our heroine at the start of the story is kind of a spinster, and she decides, you know what, I can't go out not fucking. I need to have sex with someone before I die. Valid, you know, let's lose our virginity, let's have a good time. So she's going to this, like, brothel, I guess you could say, to have sex with a man. On her way there, or whatever, this guy's in her carriage. He's looking for someone else, but she ends up coming across him, and she ends up propositioning him for sex, essentially, or something. I don't know. They have some sort of deal. This deal goes on a really, really long time. It's only, like, the 70 or 80% of the book that he actually cashes in on this deal and tries to have sex with our heroine. Up until that point, we get a lot of scenes scenes of them having like will they won't they moments, and our heroine's like, oh, he only is coming on to me because we have this deal and he knows he has to have sex with me. And I'm like, girl, you got big boobs and a pretty face and you think this man does not like you? What? I didn't understand it. I really didn't understand it. Our heroine is willing to take charge of her sexuality and like go there and like have sex with someone that she doesn't know, and yet she doesn't have the confidence to actually go through with it. And I know that those things can like coexist, but the way that this book was written didn't allow for that, and it felt like just weird characterization to have these kind of like two competing things there. I don't know. I didn't like the book. I'm sad about it. I did like the first book in this series, but I think that might have been a fluke. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to read more from this author in the future, which sucks to say, but I'm glad that I am like understanding what authors I do and don't like in historical romance and learning from that, you know? I think I've just kind of been picking things up based on what other people like, and that's been good because I think when you're new to a genre, you kind of have to pick up new authors and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think, sadly, Sarah MacLean and I just like don't totally work. In a similar vein, we have Protecting What's His by Tessa Bailey. Pro tip, maybe, I don't know if this is helpful for anyone or if everybody already knows this trick, but sometimes I like to see what is new and fresh in my library in the category of romance. So I will filter for romance as like the genre or subject. I will filter for audiobook only, available now and recently added. And with all of those filters, some of the first books that came up were Tessa Bailey's backlist, and I was like, fuck yeah, like I love Tessa, I want to read some of her backlist. And I had been hesitant to pick up the series in the first place because I'm not really into the whole like cop, firefighter, like that sort of thing, romance, but I was like, you know what, it's Tessa Bailey, I'll make an exception. I picked up Protecting What's His and immediately regretted it because this is a cop romance, and I just like, I don't know, this was written in 2013 for reference, and our main character Ginger falls for this guy named Derek. Derek's a total fucking tool, a really big alpha. He has no personality. His only personality is like, I want to tie you up and make you mine. And Ginger is like running from her past, and she has a sister who's like kind of a cockblock, and I don't know, I just didn't love this. Like there was nothing really here to enjoy. It does have like hints of Tessa Bailey's goodness, I guess you could say. Like there is the alpha hero, there is a heroine who like kind of knows what she wants, but all of like the accessory parts that make Tessa Bailey's story so good just like were missing. We didn't have any true personality for our hero or our heroine, and it was just really frustrating to see their interactions. It felt very like 50 Shades era where the guy was just like alpha for no reason. There was kind of no chemistry built before then to even make that sexy. Wasn't it for me? And I think that has really proved to me that maybe I just shouldn't go back and read people's backlist. I had kind of had this inkling when I like went back, because I've gone back a couple times on her Goodreads to like look at what she's written and see if there's anything that like has, you know, struck my fancy, and I just haven't found anything in her backlist that like really, you know, excites me. So I think I'm learning lessons, and the lesson is just maybe just wait for new releases, right? I think there's like a new murder mystery romance by Tessa coming out soon, so I'm just gonna wait for that. And Hook, Line, and Sinker, which is coming out soon, so anyway. An interesting reread that I did last book, Good Gone Bad by Gianna Darling. This one is about Harley Rose and Officer Danner, so another cop romance. I read this book 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I enjoyed it. I remember liking that this one had sort of like a soft BDSM element to it, a childhood friends to lovers, age gap sort of thing. I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Reading it a second time though, it didn't totally work for me. I would say this is like the least taboo of all the books, so if you've been wanting to read a book in this series, maybe this is the one to pick up, but I just didn't really buy the relationship between Harley and Danner very much. Like, it wasn't bad, and I did like their interactions, but I felt like the romance was kind of lacking, right? So there's a lot of flashbacks in this book, like in some of the other books. I think mostly like the book right before this one, Welcome to the Dark Side. But it didn't have the same effect on the story, right? Like, these flashbacks were almost used as the only basis for the relationship. It was like, present day, we haven't talked in like a few years, but we had this relationship in the past, and like that's where everything is. Like, I'm fine with that, but in the present there needs to be a relationship development to kind of like complement the flashbacks, and I didn't see that. I feel like I've been taking a lot of like scenic routes to say what I'm trying to say, but I just didn't feel like the relationship development was totally there. And I don't think that twisting someone's nipples like taffy is super sexy. There were a few times where I was taken out of the story reading some of the smutty scenes in this book, which hasn't happened to me yet with Gianna Darling up until this point. A lot of her writing is very over the top with the dirty talk, but it's something that I usually enjoy, and in this book I just didn't enjoy it as much. So it was like lack of relationship development mixed with this like dirty talk that kind of is making me cringe at points, sadly. It just didn't do it for me. So I bumped this from a 4 to a 3 star. Definitely not bad. Like, certainly not a bad romance. It kept me interested. I'd read it before, but I was still interested to finish it. So like, you know, Not a bad time overall, not upset that I read it, but if I were to pick books from this series to recommend as standalones, this wouldn't be one that I would recommend. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of January. I'm gonna do a little bit of a quick life update. If you don't want to watch that, that's totally fine. Thanks so much for watching. Love y'all. Appreciate ya. Let me just quickly update you on life and where I've been. If you were someone who avidly watches my channel, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you might have noticed that I was gone for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I didn't intend to take that break. I usually tell you in advance when I'm taking breaks, but I don't know what it was. Like, I didn't feel burnt out at the end of December when it came to, you know, filming every single day. I didn't feel burnt out at the beginning of the new year. I was really excited and like ready to go. And then like the last couple of weeks of January, it just really hit me that I was just tired and I didn't want to read. I didn't want to film. Anytime that I would like write down in my planner, ooh, film this or like read this, I just didn't want to do it. And so I fully stepped back. Like, there was about a week of me like trying to do stuff and it not happening, and then I took 2 weeks to just not do anything. I didn't read, I didn't film, and that's the first time I've done that in nearly 4 years, which is wild. Anytime I've taken a break in the past, like, I'm still doing things. Like, I'm still reading behind the scenes or like making stuff or planning content, and I really just took 2 or 3 weeks to like not do any of that, and I felt really good. I'm not gonna lie, I hung out with Hayden a lot more than I normally do. I started doing puzzles, which I'm fucking into now, I guess. I had a good time just like being. I don't know that that is something that will continue on into the future. I would like it to, but I know myself, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, so I don't know like if that's something that will make it into my routine going forward, like if I'm going to slow down at all. But that's where I was just like taking a break and attending to other life things. I have been planning my wedding, I have been doing other lifey things, so I don't know, it has been nice to just like focus on other things rather than giving other things like half of my attention while I focus all of my attention on YouTube, which is really how it's been for the past few years. Like, this has been my number one, this has been the most important thing to me, and it's not that it's not really important to me now, but I think I have a clearer picture and clearer vision of like where YouTube sits and fits in my life compared to how I did previously. Honestly, it's been a very like clarifying experience. It's felt good. This is gonna sound weird and maybe ominous, but like I kind of know what my end point is and like my end goal is now, which is also really satisfying. Yeah, I don't know. I've been gone, but I have been happy. Now I'm back, and I think I'm gonna give myself a little bit of like grace in the next like month or two to just post when I want to, post things that I enjoy, and not force myself to film things that don't excite me, which has been kind of the case over the past like few weeks. I've been like, shit, I need to post, but like I don't want to make this video that I said I was going to make to myself. It's all kind of silly at the end of the day, but yeah, I took a break. It was good. And my mental health is doing a lot better now too. That was like honestly the biggest reason why I was not here. Like, I didn't want to make things. The reason I didn't want to make things was because my mental health was shitty. Mental health is getting back to normal, which is good. Normal. What is normal? That's it. None of that made any fucking sense. But hopefully you're taking care of yourself. Hopefully you are doing well, and hopefully you're reading a whole lot more than I am. You'll see more regular videos from me going forward, but I'm not promising that there's going to be like a video every Sunday or a video, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's happening in the future. I do want to stick to my 6 times a month posting schedule later in the year, but right now I'm just trying to like ease back into it, have fun with what I'm doing, and just post. I think the next thing you'll see from me most likely is going to be like a Kindle Unlimited reading vlog, because that's what excites me these days, and there are quite a few books that I am excited to read. I need to read Twisted Hate. I started that one and I'm having fun with it, and I want to update y'all. So yeah, okay. That's it. Love you so much. Already said it, but take care of yourself. Stay good. I know it's kind of a rough time of year. The weather is kind of like all over the place, and it's dark and ugly and, you know, whatever, but the time change is coming. Hopefully you'll have sunny days like I do coming soon, and yeah, just love y'all. Hope you're doing good, and I'll see you in my next video. Not next Sunday, but in my next video.